All right, what's going on, everybody? Hope you all are doing well. We're going to dive into a video today. We're going to talk about the importance of width. I think width is, truthfully, for a lot of us, this is one of the reasons why we struggle with over the top. So this is going to be a really cool video topic, I hope, for a lot of you. It's going to be a slightly different way of looking at it. Before we get into that, if you haven't watched my last video, please click that link below. Details are inside of that. I also have a free crash course, Understanding Impact. Would love for you to check that out. So let's get right into it. If we look at width, what are the important pieces of width? Well, number one, the longer or the wider that this object, our lead arm and the golf club, the radius that these form, the longer that they become, the more speed we have the ability to create. This is why a lot of times we look at a guy like Dustin Johnson. He has the ability to create a lot of speed. Part of that is due, he's got very long levers. So for those of us that don't, this is where I think width can actually become a pretty important factor right here, especially with how it has the ability to help us in regards to path, where the golf club can fall more naturally, versus somebody who gets super narrow with what their arm structure does. I know this is probably one of the big things that I see on a daily basis teaching is players struggle with width. So when we look at some of the disadvantages that I would say to not having width, and this is not me saying that there aren't any good players that play golf for a living that are narrow. There are some great players that are super narrow, okay? What you'll notice is, like, let's say you take a guy like Sergio. Sergio gets very narrow this direction, but he also starts out extremely wide. Now, most of us that I would say that struggle right here is we get super narrow this direction, and then we start to throw it to wide. So we're going to go into some of the cause and effects for why somebody might do this, why they end up losing width, things that I specifically see as well. So let's dive into it. One of the number one causes I would say that I see why people don't create enough width is actually a balance loss. And so when we talk about a balance loss right here, if I take all of my mass, let's say, and I shift this all to my right side, and then all of a sudden, then I say, now I want my arms to get wide, and then I want the club to get wide. Well, I have so much mass moving that direction right there that I don't have the ability to support this to try and be able to create speed. So this is where I see things as the more centered that we can keep a player, the more we have the ability to create width. And then we can use width in a way that helps us use and determine and control what our path is doing right here. So when we look at most guys, I would say if you're the player who struggles with getting narrow right here, and we took this to the top right here, if I'm very narrow and I don't have a lot of turn, I'm going to have to compensate by throwing this club this direction, which is possible, then keeping the club head behind me, then getting the pelvis to start to move, getting the body to move before we try and re-accelerate the arms and then the hands and the golf club. It's not that it isn't possible, it very much so is possible. It's just not something that I see done very consistently out of most of the players that I teach right here. So there's a lot of different drills that I've seen out there in regards to width, okay? One of your most basic ones that I think has a lot of merit to it is just simply doing a reach drill, like where we would call reach this to basically a 9 to 3 drill. We would just reach back to 9, reach back to 3. I think there's a lot of merit inside of this, especially when we get a player to control the feet, control the pelvis, and we just ask them, we say, hey, if you were right here and you kept the arms together and we reach this to a maximum width while we're staying on center, most of the time, this club actually wants to come from the inside. Like that club right there wants to come from the inside, and that was a golf ball that I hit relatively solid. Where a lot of people start to struggle with it is, what is width supposed to do from 9 o'clock all the way up to what we would call, I guess we would call position 4, the golf swing, the top of the swing. Because I've seen a lot of players who get here, stop turning, and then they just start to fold and collapse the arms and fold and collapse the wrists. So it's not that I need to tell you to be wide. I think a lot of us, what we actually need is we need to understand, firstly, what does it actually feel like to be wide up there? And then what does it actually feel like to be wide in the transition of the downswing that allows this to give our body more of a head start so that we can slingshot the arms through the golf ball at a later time, creating most of our force down through the golf ball from hip high to hip high. So what I've got right here, I've got a really cool way of showing you guys this. I'm going to be careful in saying this because make sure you do this mostly with practice swings firstly at a slower speed. If you do choose to try and hit golf balls with this, I'm going to show you one of the things to be careful of. I just want to make sure nobody gets hurt doing this, but this is going to be a cool way of explaining this and showing this to you. So what I've got right here is I have an antenna. Okay, so I'm going to lengthen out the antenna right here. This would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18 inches, something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have a puck on the bottom of it, and I'm going to place it in between my index finger and my thumb here on my trail hand. Okay, so when I put this right here, you can see this is now sitting at a 90-degree angle to what the shaft is. So if I'm the player who gets really narrow here early, this right here, this is going to run into me. Okay, so if I take it to here and I get really narrow late, this is going to run into me right here. So more than anything, what I would use this drill for, and I'm going to shorten it even just a little bit, more than anything, what I would use this drill for is to actually create a feel, because it'd be hard to actually hold this and hit a golf ball right here. So what I would do right here is I'm going to reach this away. I'm going to make sure you understand what being on center is. And we can do videos on this at a later time on explaining how to stay more centered simplistically. Okay, so from right in here, if I take this club away to here, we can see that's no longer close to me. As I work this up, this is still no longer close to me. And this right here, this would actually have quite a bit of width in it. And so you can see from both directions right here, this club right here has not touched my body. If I hinge too early or I fold the elbow too early, this is going to run into somewhere where my shoulder is right there. And now I think on the through side right here, I think this works great on the through side as well. So when we have pressure, when we have our pressure into our lead side and we're mimicking impact, feeling what it's like to have width here, because if I fold this or I pull this into myself, this is going to come back into me. And now this is the piece that I would say right here is when you work on the through side of this, I probably wouldn't hit golf balls. I wouldn't recommend to hit golf balls doing this. I would recommend doing some slow motion feels here so that you don't actually poke yourself right here in the face. Okay? And I would do some slow motion feels of what does it feel like to keep this away from me here, just past impact, and even through to the finish right there. Just so that we have some simple awareness of, number one, what does it feel like to be able to create width? Now here's a cool little added bonus for guys out there and girls out there that struggle with being over the top with it. If you watch the direction, because one of the things that I think we should also understand is up here, we have access to, this would be forearm movements. These would be all of our forearm movements. So if we have somebody who steepens the club this direction, we could actually start to see where the stick starts to point. So when you're making rehearsals right here, let's keep this club and this stick on here when you're videoing it, keep it pointed behind your right shoulder. Don't let this point right here in front of your right shoulder. So this is a really great visual up here to keep this behind. So I'd be here, keep it behind and work it through. So right in here, keep it behind, work it through right there. And this right here can become a very simplistic way to start to create feels. Do a lot of mirror work with this. That would be the #1 place that I would say to recommend learning how to get better at building a better structure right here with our arms, because it's like if we start to see the trail arm right here collapse early, as you can see, this is starting to run into me quick. If I'm an early folder of what the wrists do, if I'm a very early hinger, that's going to start to run into me. Guys, so this is a pretty cool way to be able to create a feel here, keeping this up here behind the shoulder. There's impact, and then I'm working through. So when you're doing this, make sure you keep this as far away from you as possible. Video it. Try not to hit golf balls with it just yet. And if you do, make sure that this is not something that is like a sharp object. Like I have a rubber piece on top of this antenna in case I ever wanted to hit golf balls with it. I personally haven't tried to hit a golf ball with it. But if we did, this would be here. I'd go up to the top, keep this behind, and that's more of what that would actually start to look like right there. So this is a very good feel to start to create, because once I go up here, and here's how I'm going to ask you to try and train this. So let's go through a way that we could practice this right here. So if you have something like this, and we're only going to use this for our rehearsals, to the top, into transition, and down to impact. This is how we're going to use this right in here. So we're going to go takeaway. We're going to take this right away to shaft parallel. Up to the top, hasn't touched me. We're going to take it away to transition. This is now pointed more behind my shoulder. I'm going to bring it down to impact. Feel that. And what I would say will be the most beneficial for you is try and hold each of those positions for 5 seconds. So if we did this, go right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Behind my shoulder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Impact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we could even add here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is going to give us a lot of awareness for where this golf club is going and moving in space. And let's start to rehearse that. So now I've got the feel. That feels wide. To the top, that feels wide. That's behind my shoulder, pointed there. Impact. And then I'd go through. And then we're going to hit one. And that's a pretty good golf shot right there. Now, for those of you that want something to relate to this, if you're a visual person, and this would be a way of doing this without ever sticking yourself with that thing, is take a tee and put it in your brevis muscle. Because now you can visually see this. That's here. That would be wide. That's pointed behind my shoulder. There's impact. And there's through. And this is actually a way that I know for a fact, if we can keep this pointed away, see if I take the tee and I start to point it back out in front of my trail shoulder, well, that golf club is going to be steepening and it's probably going to be narrowing. So we would take this tee, and what we would say here now is we're going to keep the tee pointed away from us at all times. So I'm never going to have this tee pointing the direction of the center of my body. Then I can stay centered, then I can create width, and then we can step in here and we can hit shots where we can do this. So I hope this video was helpful in understanding a way that we can work on creating width like the antenna was, to give us a feel, both visually and feel oriented. Then when we choose to hit shots, we can use a tee, keep that tee pointed away from our body, we should have a little bit more width. Hopefully that helps you design a better backswing and a better downswing, gives us some better results down there at impact, and we'll be off to the races. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Thank you as always for watching. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click that like button if you did. You can also click that subscribe button for future videos that I will be posting here on YouTube. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. In the link at the bottom as well, I have a free crash course on impact that you can watch. Please click that link, sign up. Thank you again for watching, and if you guys need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.